the idea of manifesting was described by some of the Neo-Platonists as from the good to the good, never leaving the good. And there's a metaphor of a fountain that gushes out, gathers back at the same time. If you look at your central nervous system, the functional anatomy, there's something right in the center of your brain called the corona radiata. And it looks like a fountain. And the sensory fibers go up and the motor fibers come down, roughly speaking. I suspect that this is not a coincidence. So from the good, back to the good, never leaving the good. You expand and contract simultaneously, but the entire thing is surrounded by zero. So although there is contrast, there is no birth. Ironically, by utterly giving yourself to life and death, you abide in a transcendence of life and death. You are literally born into the unborn. And just like someone who's born into life doesn't know the rules, doesn't know the lay of the land, it takes many years for the no-self, the unborn, to learn how to carry on all of the functions of the self-self. There's some pictures called the Zen ox herding pictures that portray that on the metaphor of training an ox. Time and space arise by the arising of what inhabits time and space, which is our subjective world of feel, image, talk, and our so-called objective world of touch, sight, sound. Now, by utterly giving yourself to whatever wants to say yes and whatever wants to say no, to utterly giving yourself to whatever pushes out and whatever pulls in, however uncomfortable that may be for a while, we get a little bit of the cosmic affirmation and a little bit of the cosmic negation. Just a tiny little fraction of it. This is the way Sasaki Roshi teaches. So we give that tiny fraction back to the rest of the universe, the totality of expansion and the totality of contraction. And then our tiny little bit merges with the totality. And there's no somethingness to prevent expansion and contraction from re-merging, coming back together into the one, zero. And to experience this cycle over and over again, as you look to the right, look to the left, talk to this person, think about this, do that, plan dinner, eat dinner, make love, make arguments, to not lose track that this is happening would be tantamount to what might be called living nirvana. I spoke about how flow can integrate the mind and the body. I spoke about how flow can integrate inside and outside. But mind and body, inside and outside, can be integrated in the sense of never disconnected from the source, the zero, the balance point, the one, nothing, the fulfilling vacuity. It's this word, nirvana. We can't translate it into English. It means both cessation and complete fulfillment, because it's quenching. The fire is quenched, the fire of suffering is quenched, but your thirst is quenched, meaning that you have fulfillment, and not just a little bit of fulfillment, but a kind of utter fulfillment for no reason whatsoever. Happiness independent of conditions. Sukhihotu, may you be happy, is the traditional greeting in Theravada Buddhism, in the Pali language. Happy in the sense of good things happen to you, and happy in the sense that your happiness is not dependent on good things happening to you. Both of these connotations are present when people say Sukhihotu. Ironically, by being able to, in a sense, abstract, in a sense, see that all change can be in some way looked upon as an interplay of oppositely directed doings. And then by seeing that they all boil down to yang and yin, yes and no, life and death, expansion and contraction, moving forward, moving backward, etc., etc. You surrender to life and death, and you're torn apart. But don't worry. All that happens is you become life and death. This is, I didn't make this phraseology up. This is verbatim Sasaki Roshi's Teisho. He says, I know it's scary to think of completely surrendering to expansion and contraction. It's scary to think, consider allowing yourself to literally be torn apart by the forces of nature. But don't be scared. All that's going to happen is when you surrender to life and death, you will become life and death. They will no longer be an object for you, and therefore you will become free from life and death. You will become that which is beyond life and death, because life and death will rebalance, will reunite into the still point of the turning world. Neither life nor death, neither movement from nor towards. This could also be described as absolute present. Future and past uniting in an absolute presence that has no duration whatsoever. Spatially paper-thin, temporally instantaneous.